What's melting right here in this pot right now is an encaustic mix. So this is encaustic. This is just pure beeswax and damar resin. So the damar resin is sometimes a little bit dirty. You can see all those dirt marks in there. And so what I'll do is I'll pour some into this to strain all the impurities out. We're gonna mostly talk about my newest series, but before then, I was making sheets of acrylic paint, and I have 9 of these wax boards, and it's cracking a little bit because it's not the right mixture of damar resin and wax, but what would happen is I would paint on these wax boards. Once the paint dried, I would peel them off and I'd be left with sheets of paint. So you can see all the wax boards here that I have. Here's another one that has some paint on it still. And one of the things I was doing after I pulled this off is I would put it through an inkjet printer. And I did all white paint and I cut it to my inkjet printer. And I printed off the Paris Agreement and I shredded that and I put it on a couple panels. So there's this whole series I still want to do on agreements where I print directly on paint. This is another just plain wax board. This one is a tester piece because I wanted to experiment. Most of the pieces I've done so far have been just solid linen with encaustic on top. But I was playing around with putting oil below, shaped like the sheets of paint that I was making to kind of like offset that and give it an ethereal quality to it. And you can see right here is where I painted directly on the linen with oil paint. And this is a sheet of paint that was pulled off wax. So right here is a bunch of paint sheets that I have for the studio. I have a file cabinet full of these at my house, which I'll show you. But these are all for underpaintings for underneath the wax. Okay, so these are all, like I said, underpaintings for underneath the wax, so I can paint on the linen and then put the wax on top. You can see here all the wax and damar resin is melted. So what I'm going to do is turn down the heat. And I'm going to strain all the impurities out. This part gets a little bit tricky because it's hot. So I'm just smoothing out the wax right now. And I don't want it all uniform. Kind of want the edges to show, the linen edges to show here a little bit. And I'm smoothing out the wax just to make sure like it really adheres to the linen. Also making sure I have a smooth surface so I can paint on it once it's dry. One of the beautiful things about these pieces is like that the actual pure linen is shown in the edges. more resin has the highest melting point, so I'm trying to actually scrape it off to get to the heat. You can see here some of the impurities in the resin because it's all natural. Usually when I have the heat this high, I wear a full-on gas mask. So I'll come back and I'll clean up these edges right here so it's smooth. I wrap all my own panels. And I usually have the staples out so you can kind of see the work that I did putting the panels together. This is a little bit of UV resistant powder. So, you know, I use the white wax in these pieces, and it's just to make sure that, like, over time it doesn't yellow. So I just throw a little bit in. So what I was doing was I was putting all these painting all these paint sheets for other things, you know, for my resin work and also my shredded work. And after I painted the paint, I hung a few of these up on the wall to dry. And the ones I hung up on the wall were mostly white on white. And I had 3 of them up, and what happened was I was like just staring at them, and I was like enamored because the process itself is so beautiful. So then I decided to make the whole series based on the process, which is just, you know, the wax on the panel, linen panel in this instance, and then the paint on top. So usually the size that I'm working at now is 36 by 48. I would normally have to take and do 2 pans full of encaustic to fill up the panel. So a bunch of these are tester pieces, and by tester pieces I mean I'm, you know, trying out painting on the linen first to get the outline of the paint sheet. Again, these are all panels that I stretch myself so you can see the back, gesso, and the top. Right now I'm going to just demonstrate how I paint on wax. So I'm going to paint on this sheet, and what I'm going to try to do is paint white on, like this white one background, white on top, and I'm going to try to get it so I can show some of these edges here, and so the edges will play off the paint in the foreground. and look at it and make sure everything's right. In the show, these are all the colors that I mixed. So I mixed 6 yellows, 6 reds, and 6 blues. And this was a good way to sort out what colors would be placed where, and I labeled them all. I have a show coming up at Themes and Projects Gallery, and I've been working on the show for over a year now because it was supposed to take place May, June of last year, but it's been postponed due to COVID. This is one of the pieces in the show. This is going to go on the big wall in the show. But what I did for this piece is it's a 2-part piece, and I originally painted these sheets on the same wax panel, pulled them off, and this is just pure acrylic with acrylic medium. And then I repainted the same acrylic with acrylic medium here, same color. But what will happen is these sheets right here will go up as one piece in the show, and they'll be adhered to the wall. But that would be one piece against the wall with that same piece, but it would be level. And so I'm also planning on painting the wall yellow behind it as well. So you can see. You can see it's smooth on the back because it was painted on wax. And then you can see the texture on the front. My show at Themes and Projects is about my process series, and my process series came about because every single painting that I've done thus far, since I've been selling work since 2015, I've been using this part of my process, and by that I mean I paint on wax boards, and this is one of my old wax boards. So I paint acrylic on that wax board, and then what I do is once the acrylic is dried, which takes about 2 days, I can pull off the acrylic and I'm left with sheets of acrylic. This is the next generation of my process series paintings, where I actually have put a layer of oil on top of the oil primed linen and then put encaustic on top of that, and then these will get acrylic on top as well.